So, are fighting games too hard? That's the topic and question for today's video, but before we get into that, just a quick reminder, this is Shoryuken, and if you're into Capcom content, then please think about liking and subscribing, as that would definitely mean a lot. But without further ado, let's get back into the video. So, as I posed that question at the beginning of this video, are fighting games too hard? The answer is pretty subjective and depends on who you speak to, and it depends on also what you're looking for in a fighting game. Fighting games can be pretty in-depth and can require quite a bit of knowledge and skill, but also if you're looking to just have a good time and just play around, you can definitely do that and don't need to do too much. So now, me personally, as that's the only thing I can do is offer my personal opinion and personal answer to this question, I would personally say no, fighting games aren't hard, but I do know my viewpoint and answers are kind of skewed based upon my upbringing and what I was around, right? I grew up playing fighting games ever since I was a little kid, as those were the main type of games around. So because of that, fighting games for the most part come natural to me, and I understand that my experience would very much differ from someone, in this day and age who's playing or new to fighting games and has access to so many different games and hasn't really seen or experienced these, right? It's just a whole different point of perspective, and I definitely understand that. As I said before, when I grew up in the 90s, you couldn't look left or right without seeing a fighting game, right? When Street Fighter 2 came onto the scene, it definitely propelled fighting games to a whole new level, and or took gaming in general to a whole new level, as that was gaming, right? If you wanted to have fun at games, if you wanted to show off graphics, if you wanted people to play your games, 9 times out of 10 you wanted to make a fighting game during the 90s. It's why we had so many spin-offs. It's why we had so many different fighting games like Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, or we had Samurai Showdown. We had, of course, I think there's another big one. Oh, Mortal Kombat. I can't believe I almost forgot. But you see what I'm saying? We had a lot of different fighters at the time. So, you got to experience it and play them, and it was the norm. So playing them wasn't weird or, different. It was quite normal. Nowadays fighting games are very much a niche and small group. Not a lot of people play them because there are other things to do, right? There are other games that, quite frankly, look better and offer better things, right? There are games that you can freely move around, do all types of things. You got your God of Wars, you got your Grand Theft Autos, you got your Uncharted, your Zeldas, your Marios. Games that are just, again, essentially offer more content and more things for you. So because of that, people would rather gravitate towards those than a fighting game. And I perfectly understand and get it. Had I been growing up in this era, I might be the same. But, not to throw stones. Thankfully, I'm not. Thankfully, I wasn't. But, yeah, I definitely get it. But when you look at a fighting game at its core, right, it's fairly simple, right? It really is. There isn't too much involved, too much going on. You've got 2 characters on a platform battling it out. You kind of move side to side, back and forth. You have punch buttons and kick buttons, and the whole point is you want to, eliminate the health bar of your opponent, so therefore you could win the match, right? Very simple. There's nothing else to it. You don't have skill trees you gotta look through. You don't have skill points you gotta appoint. It's very straightforward, right? And yet, still to a newcomer and to the new or young gamer these days, it looks, I guess, intimidating, right? I don't just think it looks intimidating, but I think to them it probably looks archaic. They're used to seeing games, as I mentioned earlier again, that you could have free movement, free mobility. You're able to move around, right? You're able to do things. Whereas when you look at a fighting game, it feels very claustrophobic, right? You feel closed in, you feel cramped, you feel like there isn't much for you to do or go. You can't just suddenly turn around and run around the stage or whatever, right? You're kind of stuck on this 2D plane and you're fighting. So I think that also leads to the fear factor for people playing games, because like you have to get in there, you have to do it. This person's right in front of you, you have to fight. But I think that's the main thing. I think it's just intimidation and fear, because the funny thing is you have games like Dark Souls or those games, right? The Sekiros, the Bloodborns. As you know, these games are famous and synonymous with being extremely difficult, right? The Elden Rings, that's the new one that just came out that's really popular. They're synonymous with being difficult, but people still play them. People still, for the most part, enjoy them, even though they're ridiculously hard. I mean, you get, one hit can kill you, and yet people still come back for more. And you figure that, that being so hard, people wouldn't do it. So why is it that people are willing to play those games versus a fighting game? Well, I think it goes into just the systems, right? I think because in those games, it's a one-player adventure type game where you're able to fully move around in a 360 platform, right? You're not stuck and confined to one spot. You have multiple attacks, multiple ways of defending. So it you feel like you have options. You feel like there's things you can do. And also you can do cool shit, right? You can do cool attacks that just looks very appealing. Whereas, you then pop in that fighting game and instead it's the opposite. You're stuck in the corner. There isn't really much for you to go or do. You don't really have a whole lot of tricks, or if you do have cool tricks and neat moves, there are advanced mechanics that you have to really understand, how to play the game to do them, right? Imagine seeing, Ryu, doing fireballs, and you're watching that and saying, oh man, that looks fantastic. And then suddenly you get your hands on the controller and you find out you have to input these motion controls: down, forward, punch, right? To us, it doesn't seem, and I say us, I mean my crowd, my generation, it doesn't seem like much, but again, like I said, we grew up with that, right? That was the standard, that was the way to play. Imagine now, you're having other ways to play games, and suddenly you're being told, well, no, you got to do this to do that, right? Versus just pushing a button. That's the appeal of a game like Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers found that sweet spot, and I know there's that debate of whether is it a fighting game or not. Let's just say it's a fighting game, right? There's people beating each other up, and the whole point is to win, so it's a fighting game. But Smash Brothers has that, they found that sweet spot, whereas your character can freely move around, so again, you don't feel trapped or confined to a spot. The stages are big and immersive, things are happening, and then it's easy to play, right? You press one button, boom, you've already done an attack. You press another button, boom, that's another attack. You instinctively get it. I can give Smash Brothers to my 7 or 8-year-old cousin, and within a month they'll already be playing, right? Now again, if you want to master it and take it to the next level, then yes, there is another level to Smash Brothers, right? It's not as simple as, oh, I just learned to play in a couple weeks and now I can whoop anybody. No, there is another layer, but still the initial part of it is extremely fun and appealing, right? In addition to, of course, the cool characters and all that, right? That's also, I think, the main appeal for a game like Smash Bros. But anyways, that's another topic, another day. But fighting games don't have that benefit, right? They don't have that luxury. At least, traditional standard fighting games like your Street Fighters or whatever, or even your Tekkens, they don't have that luxury. If you want to do cool, amazing things, it is pretty tough. So it can be intimidating, right? You can see that and you can say, man, this really doesn't look fun, right? The other day I played Tekken 7 online, and full disclosure, I'm not a big Tekken 7 player. I play Tekken as I have them all, but Tekken 7 is something I haven't really delved too much into. And I played online and, I got defeated, right? Pretty handily. And I know someone from the outside looking in can say like, ugh, that ain't fun. Why would I want to partake in that? Whereas, I saw it and it was more like, okay, cool, on to the next one, right? You take your lickings and you move on. That's our perspective. It's just whatever, this dude was better than me, I'll just fight somebody else. But I can definitely see how someone might see that and say that's not really fun. So I'm here to say that you don't have to look at fighting games in that light, right? If you're new to fighting games and want to get into it, you can still have an enjoyable experience without knowing or learning all of the crazy mechanics, right? If you want to definitely dive in deeper and become a professional, pro, or just a top player, absolutely, go on ahead. But you don't have to do that to enjoy it, have a good time, right? I'm very much a casual player, right? I casually play games, especially fighting games, even though I love the genre. and I mainly just go against the computer, go against friends, and occasionally sometimes you go online, but I don't need to, right? I still enjoy the game the way it is because I just like doing it. And I think if you're new to fighting games, it's okay to just think like that. It's okay to approach it as, no, I'm just here to have fun, right? I'm just here to play around, mess around, and just do the arcade mode, whatever it is, story mode, and that's it. I think people put pressure on themselves to kind of just immediately jump in and think they gotta be top pro levels. They'll see crazy high skill level combat, and then they're like, oh, shoot, I don't want to get into that. Especially when performing those high skill functions, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but performing those moves require a lot of practice and time. You're not going to get that right away. It's why I think having cool gimmicks like the drive impact is awesome. I think you have to give new players tools and gimmicks, things they can do right away that produce results, because that's what people want, right? In this day and age, people want results right away. They want them as quick as possible. And I know that's not how we did it, but look, times are different. You have to adapt and appeal to your new crowd, right? You want to stick to the tried and true, of course. I'm not saying completely flip the script, but you do have to give these people gateways and access to these things, right? That's why I'm also glad that they have a easy mechanics or easy controls mode. I'm glad that more fighting games are doing that, because you have to create these avenues for these players, right? We want to grow the audience. We want to grow, right? It'll never get back to the way it was during the 90s, but you at least want to definitely be bigger than you are now, which they are on the right path. Fighting games are definitely on an upward trajectory, and I absolutely love it. But to circle back, of course, to that question, no, personally, I don't think fighting games are hard. I think it can be hard if you want to make it hard, right? But at its core, at what it is, at face value, no, fighting games are not tough. So if you're out there new, thinking about getting in, it's okay. You dip your toes in, the water's fine. Don't worry about mastering things and being a pro, this and that. No, just play for your enjoyment. And then for some reason down the line you want to take it to that level, then absolutely go take it to that level. But it was just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you guys agree or disagree. Do you think maybe fighting games are too hard? Do you think maybe they should be a little easier? Or do you think that they are too easy and maybe you feel like, no, they should be harder? Let me know in the comment section down below. Like I said, this is just my personal opinion, just based off of my experience and what I've seen and how I approach games. And that's all I can definitely give. There's no right or wrong answer. It's up to you, whatever you think. So definitely let me know down below. And then with that being said, I want y'all to take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.